For generations, the Jackson family farm sat peacefully at the edge of the growing town of Elmsford, nestled just beyond the grasp of suburban conformity. It was the kind of place that smelled like soil and freedom, where chickens ruled the yard, cows mooed without shame, and scarecrows stood guard like sentinels in straw hats. Life was good until the day the city council, in its infinite wisdom, decided to rezone the area for community cohesion. Suddenly, our farm was no longer rural sanctuary but a target-rich environment for a homeowners association with delusions of suburban grandeur. Enter Meredith Bloomfield, the freshly elected HOA president of the newly expanded Maple Hollow Association. She showed up in khakis and wedge heels, armed with clipboards, lemon bars, and a smile so fake it might as well have come with a Surgeon General warning. Meredith, who introduced herself as Mary to friends, led her board with the grace of a hostile takeover and the charm of a wet sponge. The first shot across the bow was subtly letter-written in delicate, passive-aggressive cursive, informing me that the red on my barn clashed with the neighborhood's visual harmony. I framed it and hung it proudly in the outhouse. But Meredith wasn't here for jokes. At her first meeting, which looked more like a royal decree than a community discussion, she stood beneath a banner reading "A Brighter Tomorrow" and called my family farm a visual disruption to our idyllic atmosphere. I raised my hand. "Ma'am," I said, "this land's been here longer than your Pinterest board." She looked at me like I'd farted in a church pew. "That's exactly what we're trying to eliminate." And so began the war. First came the odor citations, chickens now classified as biological hazards. Then a $2,000 fine for unauthorized agricultural development. I called Meredith. She answered with the kind of peppy enthusiasm that should be illegal. "Hi there. Just wanted to make sure you saw the notice we encouraging a more floral-focused landscape now." "I grow corn," I replied. "Corn has such aggressive height," she said before hanging up. A week later, a drone appeared, hovering like a vulture over my cows. My bull, Hank, wasn't having it. He rammed it into a tree with the righteous fury of livestock injustice. I received a formal complaint: animal aggression toward aerial neighborhood devices. I replied with a photo of Hank in aviators captioned, "He said what he said." Meredith stopped pretending. This wasn't about community standards, it was about conquest. She stood at my property line, arms crossed, scowling at my scarecrow like it owed her rent. A new rule passed: no unauthorized effigies. You can't make this up. Then came the orange flag staking a proposed fence 6 feet into my land. I pulled them out and got a notarized letter from Meredith's cousin threatening legal action. She sold essential oils at the HOA potluck, so naturally she's qualified for land disputes. Neighbors whispered tales of unsanctioned rural anxiety allegedly caused by my cows. I told one guy they were just cows. He asked if they were available for therapy sessions. Old Mr. Abernathy tried to speak up at a meeting, was banned for being emotionally disruptive. Meredith launched a newsletter, Civic Harmony Through Compliance, featuring a photoshopped image of my fields with a skull in the corner. I asked if it was a threat. She said, "It's interpretive." The mailman started leaving fines on my tractor like subpoenas. Rumor had it Meredith was pushing to declare the area a nature-free zone. Meanwhile, every meeting began with her chirping, "We're all in this together," like she hadn't spent the last month trying to turn my property into a Pinterest prison camp. But the final straw came when they erected a sign on the shared road, "Future home of the Maple Hollow Botanical Garden and Meditation Maze." The layout overlapped half my cornfield. I knew then this wasn't a turf war, it was ideological genocide. So I called Dave. Dave and I served together overseas. He owed me a favor. "You still got access to those old choppers?" He laughed. "You want a flyover?" "No," I said. "I want a statement." The next day, Meredith installed what she called a visual delineation barrier, a fence made of blinding white plastic panels placed 6 feet into my property. I strolled out with a mug that read "IP on HOA property lines," leaned over the fence, tapped it with my mug, and sipped smugly while Meredith glared from her golf cart festooned with patriotic bunting and a ring light. That's when I spotted a hummingbird feeder with a camera aimed straight at my chicken coop. I plucked it down, waved it toward the sky, and shouted, "Smile for your violation of federal wiretapping laws." 2 more cameras went up the next day, one inside a plastic owl, another in a fake weather station linked to a company called Bright Tech Solutions, LLC. I looked it up. Her nephew, freshman computer science major. Minoring in ethics. irony thick as manure. I printed the registration and taped it to her garage next to a flyer for yoga for aggressive personalities. She retaliated with spatial harmony violations. One kid waved at Daisy, my cow. He got cited for inciting ruminant unrest. I named her fences the passive aggression wall, boundary of delusion, and my favorite, the Great Wall of Nope. They patrolled the street with tape measures and protractors. One guy lay on the sidewalk trying to measure the shade angle from my oak tree. Then came the paint swatches. They offered me a choice between eggshell suburban and taupe tranquility. I asked for a farm brown. They didn't have it. One morning I found my sunflowers trimmed into the HOA logo. My trail cam caught a figure in cargo shorts with garden shears. Meredith replied to my email with, "What a creative use of your flora." Attached was a flyer for the next HOA art show. Featured artist? You guessed it. Then I noticed my irrigation pressure was off. I dug up a strange sensor planted in the soil, another environmental harmony initiative courtesy of Meredith's nephew. I replaced it with a decoy filled with goat droppings. 2 days later, Meredith declared my farm methane toxic and unsuitable for organic integration. I framed the quote and mailed it to the EPA. At the next HOA meeting, I suggested hosting a seminar titled, "When Narcissism Meets Agriculture." The motion passed anyway. They launched a drone watch led by Cliff, a retiree who treated the skies like it was the Cold War. I trained my rooster, Colonel Peck, to attack drones. He was terrifyingly effective. Meredith called it poultry-based terrorism. A poll followed. Should we report this to Homeland Security? 97 votes, 94 from her email aliases. I traced them. Then came the magnum opus, Community Aesthetic Protocol, Beta 9. 43 pages of nonsense, hay bale limitations, livestock decibel thresholds during mindfulness hours, and a ban on non-uniform sunflowers. I highlighted the whole document and submitted it to the county zoning board with the title Satire or Supremacy. The next week, my pigs refused to eat. Something smelled off chemical sour. The vet took one whiff and said, "This ain't feed. This is sabotage." Tests confirmed fluoroacetate. Poison. I filed a police report. Officer Lindley looked at the evidence and muttered, "This smells like Meredith." Then someone sprayed my beehives with the word relocate. Even my bees weren't safe. A wire was cut on my irrigation controller, replaced with a note reading, "Comply or dry." Meredith's HOA meetings had taken on cult vibes. She spoke of suburban rejuvenation and rooting out the rot. They formed a rural compliance task force. Cliff got promoted to field operations commander. I started feeding the pigs disinformation. Then came the final betrayal. My grandfather's windmill, the one he built by hand, collapsed. Bolts removed. A note nailed to the debris, "Out with the old." I called Dave. "One word," I said. "Airstrike." 3 helicopters flew over the HOA headquarters at dawn, spraying 300 gallons of aged cow manure over Meredith's white picket fences and topiary flamingos. Her lemon trees were baptized. Her mailbox exploded. I watched from the roof, sipping coffee. 3 weeks later, a lawyer in shiny shoes arrived at my door with a 97-page petition for eminent domain transfer. Meredith was trying to annex my land through a loophole buried in the HOA bylaws. I discovered half the signatures were from people who hadn't even moved in yet, digitally signed via a Gmail called harmony.realvision. I flagged the fraud, but she'd already submitted everything. The court date came. I walked in wearing boots and my father's old hat. Meredith walked in like she was running for office. Her lawyer opened with a slideshow, photoshopped flames on my barn, a graph that looked like a sad face. The judge, a man named Holcomb, said, "Are you presenting emotional infographics as evidence?" They were. I responded with receipts, property deeds, a notarized letter from the original county planner confirming Meredith had no jurisdiction. Game over. Holcomb's verdict: "This farm predates your HOA by over a century. Annexation denied." The courtroom gasped. Meredith trembled. "You don't belong here," she shrieked. "Sit down, Ms. Bloomfield," Holcomb said. "He was here before you and he'll be here after you." The HOA fell apart, and I hadn't even opened the anonymous envelope left on my porch labeled, "You're not the only one she screwed." Inside? Flash drives, evidence, and what I did next. Well, that was only the beginning.